Hey guys, it's your girl Taylor, professional caricature artist and lover of theater. I've decided to try something a little different, so I sat down with a few performing artists and had conversations about their shows and projects. This is Drawing Conclusions. I went to Long Beach Playhouse to sit down and chat with the cast of Flight, playing from May 19th to June 16th on the Mainstage. Today, I'm talking to
David Lewis.
David, how did you come to hear about Flight?
Oh, boy, that's a long story.
Is it really? Please tell it. We gotta film.
Well, I have a long and varied background in performing arts.
Really?
And I did a play here, To Kill a Mockingbird, about 7 or 8 years ago. And I always look around for something to do
Yeah.
every 5 or 6 years. And I had auditioned for another play here a couple weeks prior, but my schedule wouldn't allow me to do the play.
Okay.
And then I saw that there were auditions coming up for Flight, and I decided to audition. I live in Long Beach. I'm a resident, and to be able to perform in this space was, something I really enjoyed the first time out and wanted to get back here and do something here again. And I was really drawn to Flight. I spent a number of years as a teaching artist, and my background is in children's theater. And one of the first things I developed was African folktale performance pieces for kids, that kind of things. And so I've always been drawn towards folktales, African folktales, and I'm a history buff also.
That was my favorite subject.
Yeah. So this play hit me and pushed a lot of buttons for me.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Quite a few.
Had you heard of it before, or was
No,
this
I hadn't. I've seen the form before, and it's the way the piece is presented, and I've done some things that are similar, in that you introduce characters and then they do stories within the
Right.
stories, and the characters in the piece assume the character of different stories, and so I'm familiar with that kind of performance. There's a lot of stories about the origins of it, but I studied East African storytelling techniques, the griots, the way they would tell stories, where they would travel to the villages and they would tell stories, and then the griot would leave, the story would stay alive because the people in the village
know the story?
of course, exactly. And then, of course, as with any story, the telling gets enhanced as it goes on.
Right.
with
It's
the
like
things that
being
you
a
add.
kid and playing a game of telephone.
Yeah, things just keep getting added, and that's the thing that I really like about the form
That's
kind
really
of storytelling. And I also think that pieces like Flight, they're finally getting their due.
cool. Yeah.
Because take a look at storytelling. It's always a story about humanity, and the story of the impact that slavery had on this country, black people, and Africa. I think those are the stories that really have to be told, and I think this story really tells it very, very well. Tells those stories very, very well, because you get a lot of different perspectives within this piece. When I look at the characters in Flight, the literal characters, Ezra, Nate, and those characters, and you look at their individual stories, you think about what could they have accomplished if they weren't enslaved. You look at what they survived, you look at the spirit of them, and you think about, what if they were truly free? What
Right.
if they weren't oppressed? What if they weren't going through the psychological and emotional terrorism
Right.
that is part of slavery? What could they achieve? That is the thing that really surprised me a little bit about doing this piece, as I got to know the characters and I watched other actors breathe life into them. When you take a look at Nate, the character of Nate, when you look at what he has to endure, what he endures every day, and going forward, he's working as a slave in the field, and he comes off the field and he learned his wife hasn't been sold in front of his son. And he has to get up the next day and have the men that sold his wife to face them as their servant, as their worker. I can't imagine that kind of terrorism, because that's what it is. It's a horrific thing, but during that evening in that grove, he comes to realize the most important thing is his son. And he has to set aside his own loss, his own damage, the shattering of his own life to create a new life with just him and his son. And then you think about, what does he face going forward? At any moment, that son could be torn away from him and sold off.
Right.
And those are the things that really impact me. I think about the character of Alma, who probably will come off as the least sympathetic for the audience. But when you think about what her character has to endure, and then you take a look at what Ezra goes through when he talks to Nate about, I saw your wife in shackles, and it occurred to me, I made them. He had to create instruments to keep people on that plantation enslaved, to produce those kinds of things and to see them used on people he loved. I can't imagine what that would be like for him.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's the interesting thing about stepping into a role like this, is because it forces you to have to imagine. What has that been like?
Well, way back in the early days of theater in college, they used to talk about having the aesthetic distance and aesthetic difference, being able to walk away, to keep in mind that you're an actor, you're an artist, and
Right.
you're just creating.
It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real. But these stories are very, very real. They are not imagined. And when you think about the scope of them, so it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Because everything that's depicted in this play happened. Not
Right.
just once, twice, thousands of times. There were thousands of women that were torn away from their husband and their children and sold to another plantation. Slaves were beaten and sold for reading. And those things really happened. And so sometimes I'm not even sure if David the actor is there when I'm on stage listening. And that happens sometimes, where the power of the words and the vividness of the stories as told by other actors, it's just, it's kind of hard to keep that distance from that story, because it's so deeply true and deeply real. And the scope of it it's overwhelming when you think about the worldwide slavery happened over 450 years. We only talk about it happening a couple hundred years here, but still, how much humanity in that amount of time, that's the thing that just really impacted me.
Looking at it from that perspective, like how impactful it was and how long it went on for, and the horrible things that happened to generations of people, like, what would you say to somebody who says, oh, that's in the past, racism doesn't exist anymore, it's not something that you would see today? Is that too?
No,
Too much?
not at all. And that's what you hear all the time.
Yeah.
And but then when you take a look at the way that slavery devalued a race of people, and then you look at some of the things that are going on today. One of the stories inside the play, they talked about a slave owner who placed very little to no value on the lives of the slaves that he owned.
Right.
If a slave girl had a baby, she was in the field the next day or 2 days afterwards. And if they died, they just drug them off the field and they were replaced.
Right.
When you look at the carnage that happens nationwide to young black men, I don't know how anyone can say that what happens in slavery is that far removed, because there is a legion of people that in authority who seem to place little or no value on the lives of black men.
Yeah. May I ask, what is your favorite color? Gear shift.
Today?
Today? Yes.
Today?
What is your favorite color
I bet
today,
it's
sir?
blue today.
Blue.
I'm not kidding. Today it's blue. No explanation for this greenish.
No, I like it. Do you think it is possible for it to go away forever? Completely?
I don't know. I look at this is going to get me. I look at you millennials, and you, more so than any other generation, are able to transcend color. You've even begun to transcend all the class systems that us baby boomers get hung on. Money, position, status, and all that. You millennials seem to, you cast that aside. Social media is your talking drum, as it were. And even as we speak, there's some dark and ugly things on social media. And it outrages you. And just like the war outraged my generation. So I do believe we've made progress. I do believe we will continue to make progress. I believe, I don't mean this as harsh as I'm going to say it, I believe an impediment to that progress is my generation, us boomers. And as soon as we get out of the way or get with your program, I think we'll be able to start talking about a time when, the words of Martin Luther King will become true.
Yeah.
Content of character and not the color of your skin. And I think you guys are going to get there.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to show you this now.
Okay.
There you go. You like it?
Whoa, boy.
Maybe went a little wide on the jaw, but I think the eyes are there.
You know, I like to visualize myself as being a clear-eyed, square-jawed guy, you know? and you certainly capture that. Oh, wow. Do I get to keep this?
Absolutely. That is for you, sir.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Drawing Conclusions. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have you drawn your own conclusions? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget, get out there and draw something. See you next time.